I have been married to the Emperor Consort for 20 years, and in the eyes of the people of Daliang, we are a loving couple. But on the day of my 50th birthday, he was alone in the Buddhist hall mourning his childhood sweetheart cousin who passed away too soon. I smashed the memorial tablet and accused him. The Emperor's consort does not follow the wife's code of conduct. A daughter of a disgraced official, her memorial tablet actually reads the undead, after her death. She will forever fall into hell, no matter how much paper money you burn, it cannot redeem her from her full body of sins. His eyes were red, and he spoke recklessly. If it weren't for the accident 30 years ago, she should have been my wife. I was so furious that I smashed the ancestral shrine. Yet, during the ancestral worship the next day, he shielded me from an assassin's attack. Before dying, the Emperor Consort held me in his arms and said, "If there is a next life, I won't save you again." But little did I expect that after we both died, we did not enter the underworld, but to be reborn back to the night 30 years ago. This time, he no longer chose to lead troops to save me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. He rode through the night, only to rescue his childhood sweetheart who died young. And I, too, turned my carriage around, braving the wind and snow to seek medicine. Holding tightly to the dying person in my arms, the sound of galloping hooves rang in my ears. I opened my eyes and saw the pale face of Mingxi in my arms, like a fragile porcelain doll. My previously muddled mind became clear at that moment. Stop, turn the convoy around and head to the third princess's residence. The carriage leaned forward due to inertia, and I held the person in my arms tightly, restraining my strength, afraid that a single careless move might shatter him. However, the maid Minglan did not approve. "Your Highness, we are only 30 li away from Shongyun Temple. Why are you turning the convoy around now? Minister Mingxi's poison requires Master Jiangji to..." Before she could finish her words, I grabbed her by the neck. I leaned in close to her face, which was gradually turning blue and gasping for air, and said, "You treacherous, ungrateful wretch." Clear and bright, a man in a tight-fitting outfit entered the carriage. I threw the unconscious Minglan to him and said, "Minglan colluded with assassins. Lock her up in the royal prison. Alert the Imperial Guards that there are assassins lying in ambush 30 miles away. Also, dispatch 200 garrison troops to secretly surround the third princess's residence." Minglang suppressed the shock in his heart and dragged Minglan out. I blew the bone whistle hanging from my neck. A slender, black-clad secret guard, his face veiled, appeared soundlessly inside the carriage. He knelt beside me with his head bowed. I handed him the jade token of the Prince of Ying's residence and instructed, "Go to the palace immediately to see His Majesty. Report that the thief who stole the defense map of Chusha City is hiding at the residence of the third imperial aunt." The carriage raced through the snowy night. The carriage curtain was lifted by a gust of wind. I looked up and caught a glimpse of Xiao Zun's tense expression as he urged the horse forward at full speed. I frowned and held Mingxi tighter. It seems Xiao Zun has returned as well. In my previous life, I led a group through the snow to Shongyun Temple in search of medicine, only to be ambushed by assassins arranged by Minglan along the way. All my trusted aides were slaughtered. In that moment of utter helplessness, it was Xiao Zun who recognized me and single-handedly rescued me. But this delay caused me to miss the distress signal from my childhood cousin, leading to the tragic death of her entire family. Now, I watch the blue signal flare rising at the edge of the sky. My heart is free from sorrow or joy, since heaven has given Xiao Zun and me a chance to be reborn. This time, let everything return to its rightful course. He won't have his tendons severed by an assassin while saving me. I don't have to be forced to marry you because of the Emperor's favor. Now, he went to save his childhood sweetheart cousin. I also need to save my childhood friend. The carriage beside me slowly disappeared. Xiao Zun, leading the way, reined in his horse and looked back through the wind and snow, gazing into the distance. He always felt he had seen His Majesty, but seeing the signal flare in the sky, he still spurred his horse forward, pressing on against the wind and snow. Last night, the incident where I led troops to surround Princess Wenshu's residence caused an uproar in the imperial court. Your Majesty announced during the morning court that Princess Wenshu had colluded with the Xiongnu royal court, especially since the newly wedded consort of the princess was the very thief who stole the defense map of the border city, Shocheng. This silenced those censors who had been accusing me. Everyone in Daliang knows that the Xiongnu are brutal and savage by nature, plundering southward year after year, and Shocheng was precisely the most solid defensive line against the Xiongnu army. 5 months ago, the city defense map of Shocheng was stolen. 1 month later, the Xiongnu marched south to attack the city. If it weren't for the Xiao family army fighting to the death in resistance, Shocheng would probably have long since fallen into Xiongnu hands. Now, both inside and outside the court, everyone is praising the King of England for his wisdom and might. In contrast, the news of General Xiao exchanging the military tally for an imperial decree seems rather dull and unremarkable. Inside the Prince of England's residence, and I am feeding a bowl of pitch-black medicine to the unconscious Mingxi. 3 days ago, Mingxi took the soul-severing poison in my place. The imperial physicians were helpless against it, and in my desperation, I heard that Taoist Jiangji of the Shongyun Temple possessed an antidote. I immediately gathered my men and rushed out of the city to seek the cure, but little did I know, it was all a scheme orchestrated by Minglan in collusion with Zhao Wenshu. In my previous life, when I was being chased by assassins, it was Mingxi who, despite his illness, took a sword strike for me. This led to the poison taking effect, and he died tragically in my arms. We grew up together since childhood, like bamboo and plum blossoms. He always stood in front of me, protecting me. His death became a pain I could never forget in my lifetime, even if I had become an emperor in my past life. But behind the dragon throne, there was no longer a reassuring presence. Now the antidote has been found in Zhao Wenshu's residence, and Mingxi has also changed her tragic fate. I gently wiped his snow-white forehead with a handkerchief, feeling an endless surge of sorrow and the bittersweet joy of having him back. In this lifetime, I want Mingxi to stay by my side forever. But suddenly, a clamor of voices came from outside the door. I pushed the door open just in time to see Xiao Zun, dressed in a red round-collared robe, angrily pointing his sword at Minglang. "You dog of a slave, get out of my way. I demand to see the King of England." Minglang, neither haughty nor humble, drew the long sword at his waist as if to resist. "Minglang, take the prisoner to the Chief Justice in the dungeon." I interrupted their actions with my voice. Minglang took the order and left. Deliberately bumping into Xiao Zun's shoulder on his way out, Xiao Zun immediately tried to trip him, but Minglang dodged it. This made him glare fiercely at Minglang several times in anger. When facing me, he again showed an angry and flustered expression. I didn't pay attention to Xiao Zun, instead focusing my gaze on the woman beside him. The woman had a delicate figure like a willow swaying in the wind, her lovely face hidden within a white fox fur cloak, revealing only a pair of limpid, autumn water-like eyes. I still remember that fox fur cloak. It was among the gifts Xiao Zun sent when the Empress Mother arranged our marriage in my previous life. It is said that Xiao Zun personally hunted the white fox in the northern lands. Now the garment is draped over Wei Yun, with such striking looks. No wonder Xiao Zun could never forget her for a lifetime. A pity, though. The Wei family embezzled 3 million taels of silver from the Northern Frontier Army provisions, leading to their confiscation and exile. She is also a disgraced official. My gaze was too direct. The woman lowered her head in fear. Xiao Zun immediately shielded her, pulling her behind him, and looked at me with hostility. "Your Highness, you have indiscriminately slandered Princess Wenshu and even imprisoned everyone in the princess's residence. You have gone too far. Moreover, you clearly know that the consort is innocent. Why must you wrong an innocent person?" I sat in the chair, sneering at Xiao Zun. The prince consort's innocence was a matter of the previous life. In this life, I exposed Zhao Wenshu's treason and collusion with the enemy ahead of time, and I also uncovered things that were not found in the previous life. That seemingly pure and noble prince consort Wei has quite a few capital offenses hidden under the surface. I almost forgot, Zhao Wenshu's new prince consort is none other than Wei Yun's own elder brother. If it weren't for Zhao Wenshu threatening with her life, that imperial son-in-law would likely have been exiled as well. No wonder, right after saving his cousin, he couldn't wait to come and blame me. So it was for the sake of his beloved. I tightened my grip on the hand warmer and said, "General Xiao, whether the consort is guilty or not is a matter for the Chief Justice. Once the investigation is concluded, he will be released. Why must you cause a disturbance at my royal residence? Instead of concerning yourself with the affairs of the princess's household, you should consider this. As a general, you led a group to break the curfew and brought back the daughter of a convicted official. Is this a crime your Xiao family can bear?" Xiao Zun's face stiffened. "I had my reasons for acting. Why must you nitpick? Moreover, there are still many doubts about the Wei family's corruption case. They were assassinated on their way to exile, and I saved them to prevent innocent people from dying tragically. After all, the evil deeds committed by Wei Xiong should not bring harm to his children." I raised my hand and smashed the warming stove on Xiao Zun's head. What a high-sounding speech. The Wei family's corruption is a nailed-down fact. still innocent. After all this talk, isn't it all for the sake of your childhood sweetheart cousin? In our past life, we argued over this matter more than a few times. At first, I pitied him for losing his beloved, severing his tendons, and ruining his official career, so I tolerated him in every way, but whenever he was the slightest bit unhappy, he would use this to provoke me. I am also the emperor, and having my own imperial consort constantly talk about his old lover made me very angry, so I started to retort. Every time I scolded him, he would stay alone in the Buddhist hall, copying scriptures. And what is enshrined in the Buddhist hall is not a merciful bodhisattva, but a memorial tablet inscribed with Wei Yun's name. If he hadn't missed my birthday banquet in my previous life, I wouldn't have barged into the Buddhist hall, only to discover the truth he had hidden from me for 30 years. Now, seeing Xiao Zun argue with me over Wei Yun, a nameless fury still rises from the depths of my heart. Wei Yun, who had been hiding behind Xiao Zun, immediately rushed to me and knelt down. Pitifully said, "Your Highness, all the fault is mine. I beg you not to punish Azun. It was because I feared my brother might suffer misfortune that I anxiously sought Azun's help in a moment of desperation. Azun was loyal to his sovereign and loved his country, achieving countless merits in the Battle of Shocheng. If your Highness is angry, this guilty woman is willing to remain in the palace to atone, only begging for your Highness's forgiveness." Wei Yun kowtowed to me several times with a thud. A red mark was left on the forehead from the impact. Xiao Zun, however, pulled Wei Yun up, covering his bleeding forehead, and glared at me fiercely. "Ayun, you've done nothing wrong. Why kneel? Since I have broken the curfew, I am prepared to face the consequences. You don't have to blame yourself. Rest assured, with me here, even the King of England cannot touch you." Wei Yun was moved to tears by these words. The gaze involuntarily turned toward me. A pair of red eyes, just like a rabbit's. "Fine, using Xiao Zun's military achievements to pressure me, still flaunting your affection right in front of me. Do you think I'm just a decoration?" With a wave of my hand, two sturdy maids immediately dragged Wei Yun out of the mansion. Xiao Zun trembled with rage, shielding her as he ran and cursed, "Zhao Yinghuang, you've gone too far. You've come back too, haven't you? You're heartless and faithless. In this lifetime, I will never marry you again." The way she stomped her feet in anger was exactly the same as in her previous life. "What nonsense are you talking? I will never marry him again in this lifetime. After all, the one who holds my heart is lying in my room right now." But I couldn't smile for long. The Empress summoned me to the palace and, just as in my previous life, presented the imperial decree betrothing me to Xiao Zun. "Your Majesty, I am unwilling." The Empress's gaze shifted from the decree and settled upon my head. Even after having been an emperor for 20 years in my past life, I still couldn't help but feel a flutter of nervousness when facing the mother who gave birth to and raised me. "Phoenix, this is not taking a husband, but accepting a betrothal gift. The 200,000 iron cavalry of the Xiao family, will you accept them or not?" Kneeling on the ground, my heart sank. Leaving Weiyang Palace and returning to the royal residence, I only then realized my back was drenched in cold sweat. The maid Mingxing came running joyfully to report, "Your Highness, Lord Mingxi has woken up." The gloom in my heart was swept away by immense joy. I hurried toward my own courtyard. There's only one thought in my mind: Mingxi is awake. But when I reached the courtyard, I stopped in my tracks, too afraid to step inside. I was afraid this was all just a dream granted to me by the heavens. I stood outside the courtyard for a long time, my shoulders covered in a thick layer of snow. Suddenly, the door was opened. "Your Highness, it's snowing. Don't let yourself catch a chill." Mingxi leaned against the doorframe, his white robes like snow, his gaze as gentle as ever. Mingxi's poison was cured, but I fell ill. I was burning with fever, my consciousness drifting in a dreamscape of flickering light and shadow. I hazily returned to the age of 10. Back then, the previous emperor was incompetent, and the deposed crown prince held the reins of power, banishing my mother and father to the southern wilds. While I was left in the capital to waste away day after day, my domineering cousin took pleasure in bullying me. He brutally killed the pony my father gave me, tied me to a tree trunk, and whipped me over and over again. It was Mingxi who shielded me beneath him, taking the blows for me. Using his frail body to create a safe haven for me, he covered my eyes and whispered words of comfort. "Your Highness, I'm here, don't be afraid." But his own right cheek was forever marked by a fierce whip scar. At 12, my cousin gave me a sachet that had been worn by a smallpox patient, causing me to contract the disease. He confined me in the Guanju Palace for 5 days and nights, where I went without a drop of water, nearly dying. It was he who knelt on the path of the Empress Dowager's return from worship, kowtowing until his forehead was blooded and mangled, to beg for the life-saving medicine for me. But from then on, the cold poison seeped into his bones, and he could no longer stand for long. Whenever it was rainy or cold, his legs would ache with a pain that pierced to the very marrow. Seeing my sorrow, he wiped away my tears to comfort me. Your Highness's life is Mingxi's life. This servant will always protect your Highness. At 14, in the vast imperial palace, the people who were kind to me left one after another. Only Mingxi remained with me in the Guanju Palace. I climbed onto the roof of the Guanju Palace, gazing toward the southern barbarian lands, struggling to hold back my tears. Mingxi silently stayed by my side, breaking the rules for the first time, holding my hand and making a promise. Your Highness, I will always be by your side, protecting you for a lifetime. He kept his promise, time and again shielding me from the malice within the palace, dealing with the wolves and tigers around us. In the end, he died by the sword in my place, his body frozen into a bloody ice, becoming my eternal nightmare. For 20 years after Mingxi's death, I lay alone, unable to sleep, often jolting awake from dreams. In my panic, I looked around, but could no longer see the figure waiting in the dim lamplight. The world praises me as a diligent and benevolent ruler. Who would have known? I could never find again the youth who accompanied and protected me. In bed, I suddenly convulsed, hot tears slipping into the pillow. Mingxi, don't go. And this time, I finally heard the familiar reply, Your Highness, I am here. After I recovered from my illness, I feared that rebirth was just a dream, and upon waking, Mingxi would be gone again. I couldn't help but chase after Mingxi's figure, calling out to him over and over again, Mingxi, your servant is here. Mingxi, Your Highness, I am here. I held Mingxi by the waist, breathing in the faint sandalwood scent on him, and told him, Mingxi, never leave me. A tolerant helplessness rose in Mingxi's eyes as he agreed. All right, heaven granted me rebirth. Besides saving Mingxi, I must also rid the great Liang of its parasites. I summoned Xian Yi and handed him a list, instructing him to relay it to the Shadow Guard to thoroughly investigate each person on the list and their associated networks. In the following days, based on the evidence presented by Xian Yi, the Empress Mother harshly dismissed a group of officials from the court, especially Zhao Wenshu, who, despite being a princess, colluded with the Xiongnu and was secretly poisoned to death by the Empress Mother. All those in the princess's residence were also sentenced to death. Xiao Zun attempted to plead for Prince Consort Wei, but was reprimanded by General Xiao. As the new year approached, everyone in the court was on edge. Soon after, many rumors about Xiao Zun began to circulate in the capital. He had violated the curfew and trespassed into the Prince of Ying's residence, which led to officials at court submitting memorials to impeach him. The Empress handled the matter lightly, merely sentencing Xiao Zun to a month of house arrest for self-reflection. Everyone says the Xiao family is highly favored by His Majesty, and there is even talk of bestowing Xiao Zun upon me as my official consort. Yet, old General Xiao had Xiao Zun beaten with 30 military rods and then dragged him to the gate of the Prince of Ying's residence to apologize. Hearing that I was ill, he even sent several carts of nourishing tonics. Upon hearing this, my hand paused as I was about to eat a grape. Tell Mingxing to pick out some fine medicinal herbs and deliver them to the general's manor. Mingxing didn't understand. It was clearly Xiao Zun who had made the mistake, so why was I sending medicine? I tapped her on the head and said, Silly girl, His Majesty has handled this matter with a light touch, and old General Xiao even sent someone to the Prince Ying's residence to apologize. If I were to hold a grudge, who knows? The court officials might submit memorials tomorrow accusing me of being narrow-minded and lacking in magnanimity. Mingxing soon returned, holding a brocade box that contained a fiery red fox fur coat. I only glanced at it, and an indescribable feeling welled up in my heart. In the autumn hunt of my past life, he had also hunted a red fox for me and had the imperial tailor make it into a fur collar. I wore that fur collar for 30 years. I had Mingxing take the brocade box back to the storeroom. As she was leaving, she took out a letter and said, Your Highness, the young general asked me to give this to you. I opened it, and on it were 3 words written in a bold, flowing script. I was wrong. After Xiao Zun recovered from his illness, he led his troops out of the city to suppress the bandits, wiping out every last one of them in the mountains near the capital's surrounding counties. My carefully laid plans were thrown into disarray. I crossed out the word bandit suppression on the paper and began to deploy the next arrangement. Xiao Zun had been enjoying immense prestige in the imperial court recently, But he did something that left everyone utterly astonished. He actually submitted a petition to use his military merits in exchange for Wei Yun's innocence. The emperor rarely lost his temper, yet Xiao Zun knelt outside the Weiyang palace for a long time. Xiao Zun's mother and the emperor were sisters who grew up together, sharing an exceptionally deep bond. Not to mention that Xiao's father and mother had saved the Empress Dowager's life in their youth. The Xiao family has the merit of supporting the emperor's rise, and commands 200,000 iron cavalry in the northern frontier. Even the empress would not reject Xiao Zun's request. In her heart, Xiao Zun is the only suitable candidate to be her principal consort. Yet, Xiao Zun is now causing a stir over a cousin, which truly wearies her. In the end, His Majesty agreed to Xiao Zun's plea, clearing Wei Yun's name but stripping him of his title as a young general. It is said that old General Xiao drove both Xiao Zun and Wei Yun out of the family home. Left with no choice, Xiao Zun had to settle his cousin in his second uncle's house. During my time in the capital, I often saw Xiao Zun taking Wei Yun out shopping, the two of them relying on each other for companionship. They bought all the fashionable fabrics, silks, and satins, as well as jewelry and ornaments. Treasures from the western regions had Xiao Zun buying cartload after cartload. By the looks of it, it seemed Xiao Zun was preparing betrothal gifts. Those who had seen Xiao Zun shopping said the young general's cold, intimidating aura had completely vanished. Throughout history, even the mightiest heroes have faltered at the beauty's charm. It seems Xiao Zun has also fallen under the spell of a gentle maiden. Hearing this, I was not the least bit surprised. After all, in his previous life, Xiao Zun yearned for Wei Yun his entire life. In this one, he naturally feels compelled to protect her. I simply laughed off these rumors. I remain busy, with undercurrents of turmoil in the court. I must continue to strive, sometimes working late into the night. Mingxi, who stays by my side, gently massages my throbbing temples and offers me a warm bowl of bird's nest soup. Breathing in his faint fragrance, I love holding him, cherishing these moments of tranquility. Finally, as the new year approaches, the court officials have already begun their holidays. I rarely had such leisure time, so I went to the Royal Merchant Yunji Pavilion to pick out Mingxi's favorite moonlight satin for new clothes. However, just as I took the fabric, I ran into Wei Yun coming down the stairs. Her maid blocked the way in front of Wei Yun, while she stared at me with red-rimmed eyes, as if her gaze held 1,000 unspoken words. I simply found it unlucky. As I turned to leave, a sharp arrow shot through the air. 2 assassins in black charged at me with drawn blades. Shen Yi emerged from the shadows and engaged one in combat. Left alone, I drew the soft whip from my waist and began to counterattack. I ordered the palace guards to protect the surrounding civilians. The 2 assassins' martial arts did not resemble those of the Liang people. Instead, they were northern techniques. Be careful, Yun. My body was thrown aside by a great force, and my arm was slashed by the assassin's long blade. Turning my head, I saw Xiao Zun rushing anxiously up the stairs, bending down to shield Wei Yun, taking a blow himself. The Imperial Guards arrived very quickly. They arrested all the assassins. I looked at the blood-stained silk, then left expressionlessly with my attendants. Before I could board the carriage, Xiao Zun rushed out after me. Seeing the blood on my right arm, he reached out to touch it, but I avoided his hand. Xiao Zun's face was deathly pale, futilely trying to explain something. Your Highness, I'm sorry. My cousin doesn't know martial arts and just survived an assassination attempt a few days ago. I thought with so many guards in the prince's residence, they would surely protect your highness. Wei Yun also rushed out at this moment, her eyes red as she looked at me. Your highness, she had barely spoken a word when the maid behind her tugged at her clothes. I, however, boarded the carriage in silence. Your highness, let me see your wound. I have medicine here. Your highness, your highness. Inside the carriage, Xuani applied medicine to my wound, while outside the window, Xiao Zun chased after the carriage, stumbling and falling into the snow. I withdrew my gaze. Since the choice has been made, let us release each other in this lifetime. The assassin's identity was quickly uncovered. It was the work of the northern Xiongnu and the deposed crown prince. The empress was furious and ordered a thorough investigation of the court officials. More people in the capital were imprisoned, and those hiding in the shadows temporarily ceased their troublemaking. Xiao Zun soon sent 2 rolls of moonlight silk and several boxes of tonics, which I returned untouched. I sent the moonlight silk I had repurchased to be made into clothing. Xiao Zun had people sending gifts every day. I was so annoyed that I took Mingxi to the palace retreat. When Mingxi found out I was injured while buying silk for him, he stayed by my side day and night, indulging my every wish. I rarely got to enjoy Mingxi's gentleness. One day in the prince's garden, I encountered Xiao Zun, who had climbed over the wall. He knelt carefully before me, clutching the hem of my robe. Your Highness. I was wrong. I shouldn't have protected my cousin first. I shouldn't have said those words. Your Highness, please don't refuse my gift, don't ignore me. I know you mind about cousin Wei Yun, but her mother once saved my life. I only protected her out of gratitude. Now that I've ensured her safety and repaid the debt, you are the only one in my heart. That snowy night, I had already sent people 30 miles away. The moment I saw the Imperial Guards, I knew you had returned too. The ending in our previous life was too abrupt. Nothing has happened in this lifetime. Can we forget the past and start over, Your Highness? I beg you to give me a chance. I withdrew the hem of my robe, my gaze falling upon Xiao Zun, clad in red. Decades of arguments and reconciliations in my past life had long worn out my heart, leaving only exhaustion behind. Xiao Zun, not everything can start over. I don't want to begin again with you. Xiao Zun's face turned ashen as he gave me a deep look, leaving behind a single sentence. I don't believe it. He hastily climbed over the wall and left, and only then did I see Mingxi not far away. I felt a rare sense of guilt. He asked nothing, only pressing the hand warmer into my palm. That day, Minglang, whom I had sent to Jiangnan, returned, bringing with him a woman in blue robes. The moment the woman saw me, she exclaimed, "Bestie, you've crossed over too. Wait. How did you become the Prince of England?" Inside the room, I dismissed everyone, leaving only myself and the woman in blue. I wasn't surprised by the word best friend coming from her mouth. In my previous life, when I first went south of the Yangtze River, I saw her at the Prince of Jing's mansion. She was dressed in rags, acting crazy, and called me her best friend. I didn't pay it much mind at the time, thinking she was just one of the Prince of Jing's concubines who had lost her sanity. It was only later, when I was assassinated in Jiangnan and saved by her, and by chance learned that all the novel and peculiar gadgets from the Prince of Jing's mansion were her creations, that I brought her back to the capital. I cured her of her severe illness and avenged her. As she gradually regained her senses, in gratitude, she developed cannons for me and helped me reclaim the borderlands. Later, I ascended the throne as emperor. She became the first female chancellor of the Great Zhou dynasty. Over more than a decade of companionship, she regarded me as her closest confidant. It's a pity that 10 years of wasted time in the Prince Jing's mansion had drained her vitality. At the age of 40, she fell seriously ill. On her deathbed, she revealed to me the secret of her time travel. And the reason she treated me well was partly because I looked exactly like her lifelong friend. Now seeing an old acquaintance from the past again, I slowly revealed a smile. Qi Xiaoming, long time no see. Qi Xiaoming crossed her arms and showed an awkward smile. I recounted the events of my rebirth to Qi Xiaoming and spoke of the bond we shared in our previous lives. She was dazed, then had a sudden realization, and finally became enthusiastic. Was I doing so well in my previous life? Say no more. I'm in with you. But, handsome brother who brought me back, can you keep me company? I shook my head and refused. Minglang is my person. Qi Xiaoming shrugged and asked casually before leaving. Did I get married in my past life? How long did I live? My smile stiffened, and I didn't answer. She playfully stuck out her tongue, feigning nonchalance. All right, I won't ask any more, but you must promise to keep me safe and sound for 100 years. The teacup in my hand had turned cold, yet I drank it all in one gulp. In my past life, those I cared about and those who cared about me all left me one by one. In this life, I will definitely protect those I cherish. Soon. Qi Xiaoming prepared the gunpowder and began making the cannon. I reported her contributions one by one to the Empress. The Empress was greatly pleased, granting 10,000 taels of gold and appointing her as the director of the imperial workshops. Soldiers selected for the siege the following year were also trained in the use of cannons. Qi Xiaoming accepted the gold, smiling so widely that his eyes disappeared into slits. As for Prince Jing, who had imprisoned Qi Xiaoming, I had long uncovered evidence of his collusion with the Xiongnu and had him sent to the Court of Judicial Review, where he now serves as a test subject for medicines day after day. The case of Zhao Wenshu implicated many court officials and feudal lords. The Empress was furious, and everyone in the court was in fear for their safety. In the capital, several high-ranking officials were subjected to house raids and exile overnight. Even the feudal lords across the regions had their territories and armies reduced because of this incident. Zhao Wenshu somehow obtained the method for refining pure salt and passed it on to the Xiongnu royal court of Beishiro. It must be understood that there are 2 salt lakes in the Beishiro region. If the Xiongnu were to acquire the method for refining pure salt, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, I intercepted this method before it could be spread, however. A batch of ironware that Zhao Wenshu intended to send to the northern Shuro region has gone missing. In my previous life, that batch of ironware fell into the hands of the Xiongnu and became the butcher's knife wielded against the people of our great Liang, causing the tragic deaths of 30,000 soldiers and civilians. Even with the memories from my past life, I turned the entire capital upside down but still couldn't find the missing ironware. Because of this matter, I haven't been able to sleep peacefully every night. On the surface, this matter is about Zhao Wenshu colluding with the Xiongnu to betray the country, but privately, both my mother, the Empress, and I know that all of this points to one person behind the scenes, the deposed Crown Prince, Zhao Wenyu. 5 years ago, Zhao Wenyu was deposed and, harboring resentment, took advantage of our grandfather's critical illness to stage a coup. Unfortunately, the Empress turned the tables and had the Emperor write an abdication edict, passing the throne to her. After the failed coup by the deposed Crown Prince, he disappeared without a trace. Yet, the disturbances from the northern Shuro region in recent years and the unusual behavior of court officials all point to the fact that the deposed Crown Prince is hiding in northern Shuro. In my previous life, it took me nearly a decade after ascending the throne to completely purge the faction of the deposed Crown Prince from the court. It was also at that time that I discovered Minglan, who was by my side, was actually the niece of the deposed Crown Prince's wet nurse, and the poison that Mingxi took for me was also the one she had given me to avenge the deposed Crown Prince. In the previous life, Minglan disappeared after leading the royal mansion into the assassin's ambush, but in this life, she will be imprisoned in the dungeon forever, suffering all the world's bitterness day after day as a test subject. There has been no progress in the investigation of the ironware matter. It also coincided with Princess Yongyang's 60th birthday. The invitation arrived early at the prince's mansion, and I brought Mingxi along to the banquet. In the flower hall of the princess's residence, Mingxi sat by my side, serving me dishes, under the cover of my robe. I mischievously hooked my fingertip around the white jade pendant at his waist, subtly pulling him closer to me. Mingxi lowered his eyes helplessly and tucked the warm hand warmer brought by the maid into my hand. I held the hand warmer and smiled at him, just adoring the way Mingxi gently indulged my mischief. My smile hadn't faded when I came face to face with Xiao Zun's livid expression. He shot me a resentful glare and took a seat across from me with the woman in blue by his side. As soon as Xiao Zun appeared, whispers broke out among the gathering, especially Wei Yun by his side. Rumors about the emperor bestowing marriage between me and Xiao Zun have long been spreading far and wide, yet he flaunts his cousin in public, appearing utterly arrogant. During the banquet, many raised their glasses, casting teasing glances that lingered between me and Xiao Zun. I pretended not to see anything, eating the dishes Mingxi had picked for me, occasionally hooking my fingers into his warm palm, successfully catching his indulgent smile. Halfway through the banquet, I had drunk quite a bit of wine, and Mingxi helped me to a guest room to rest. As I stood up, a strand of Mingxi's hair was lifted by the wind, and I casually smoothed his cloak, but suddenly, the crisp sound of a wine glass shattering came from behind. Xiao Zun's palm was dripping with pale red wine, his eyes fixed intently on my hand. Inside the room, I had taken a nap and woke up to find Mingxi gone. Pushing the door open, I saw Xiao Zun standing beneath the plum tree. His black cloak and hair were covered in snow. He took a step forward and questioned me as soon as he saw me. "Why, you gave the moonshadow satin I gifted you to a mere attendant to wear. The entire capital knows that our marriage will soon be decreed, and I am to be your principal consort. Why must you still be so intimate with that attendant?" I lowered my gaze to his tightly clenched fists, calmly replied, "The gift you sent, Xiao Zun. I have also had someone return to the Xiao residence." Xiao Zun was stunned for a moment, unable to believe it. I continued, "Xiao Zun, it was you who said you never wanted to marry me in this lifetime. Besides, the emperor's arranged marriage is just a rumor. Why take it so seriously? Mingxi is not a servant, he is the one I love. I hope you will choose your words carefully from now on." Xiao Zun interrupted me, saying anxiously, "No, that was just angry talk. I didn't say I don't want to marry you. I'm just unwilling to accept it. In my past life, to save you, I caused the death of cousin Wei Yun, severed my wrist tendons, and ended my path to the military. One after another, new people came to your side, yet your eyes never held a trace of me. I am just unwilling, not that I don't want to marry you." I replied indifferently, "Where is Wei Yun, in your previous life?" You said it yourself, she was meant to be your wife. Since you already have someone you wish to marry, why do you still pester this prince? A flicker of delight flashed in Xiao Zun's eyes. Your Highness, you still care about me. I knew you still cared about me. Cousin Wei Yun is not my wife. What I said in my past life was just out of anger. You are the only one I have as my wife, as long as you. I interrupted him coldly. Xiao Zun, we have been reborn, in this lifetime. I will not marry you again. Xiao Zun looked anxious and took a step forward to continue speaking. Your Highness, with my Xiao family, the passes of Beishuo and the cities of Gua and were reclaimed from the Xiongnu. Marrying into my family will be your support. 30 years of companionship in our previous lives. Have you forgotten, Your Highness? And do you no longer want Qianna either? Seeing the plea in Xiao Zun's eyes, I turned my face away. Xiao Zun, there's no need to say more. In this lifetime, I only want Mingxi. Xiao Zun, seeing the resolve on my face, took 2 steps back. I won't give up, Your Highness. In the past life and this one, the position of your rightful consort can only be mine. His Majesty will not give up on arranging our marriage, Your Highness. You will still marry me in this lifetime. After everyone had left, I slowly exhaled a puff of white breath. Since I have been reborn, everyone has their own fate. Why dwell on the matters of the previous life? I left the courtyard to find Mingxi. On the way, I ran into Wei Yun, who had been sitting next to Xiao Zun at the banquet. Now, Wei Yun wore a white veil over her face, was wrapped in a snow-white fox fur, and had a set of blue gemstone headdress on, looking extremely luxurious and exquisite. Wei Yun gracefully walked towards me, and the maid beside her immediately looked at me with an unfriendly expression. Your Highness. Wei Yun knelt gracefully before me. Your Highness, this humble woman and my cousin Azun are truly in love. I beg Your Highness to show mercy and not tear apart our destined marriage. The maid beside her disapprovingly shot her mistress a look and subtly tugged at Wei Yun's sleeve. Unfortunately, Wei Yun was lost in her own world. Your Highness, look at this jeweled headpiece. Azun specifically bought it for me from a merchant from Beishuo. This bracelet is also from Beishuo. And this white fox fur cloak was hunted by my cousin in Beishuo for me. So, my bond with my cousin is as strong as gold. Your Highness, why must you interfere? I slowly glanced at Wei Yun's smug face. I chuckled softly and casually ordered, guards, take these 2 away. The 2 were taken back into the house. And the door closed. I immediately ordered Xuani, seize that maid. The young maid beside Wei Yun suddenly sprang into action, drawing a gleaming dagger from her sleeve and thrusting it toward someone. But Shenyi stopped it. I had Shenyi take the person to the side hall. Wei Yun's repeated appearances before me had already aroused my suspicion, and her deliberate display of Xiao Zun's gift from the northern frontier further solidified my thoughts. So, I had her brought before me on charges of disrespect. Wei Yun knelt down with a thud, weeping as she pleaded, Your Highness. This humble woman knows where the batch of ironware sent to Beishuo by Princess Wenshu is hidden. I only beg Your Highness to save Xiao Feng. The matter was of great importance, so I asked Wei Yun to rise and explain the details carefully. She recounted in detail how she discovered the hidden ironware. It turned out that her beloved was the eldest legitimate son of Xiao Zun's second uncle, Xiao Feng. However, Xiao Feng's mother passed away early, and his father favored the stepmother who had been elevated to the main wife. He earned the position of commandant of the capital guard through his own efforts. While patrolling the capital, he noticed that the family's carriages were frequently leaving the estate. Upon closer investigation, he uncovered his father's collusion with the Xiongnu to smuggle ironware. He sneaked into his father's study to find the incriminating evidence and handed it over to his beloved's father, hoping it would reach the emperor directly. However, when the corruption case involving Wei's father came to light, he was too preoccupied with his own survival to pay attention to what Xiao Feng had delivered. Xiao's father discovered his actions and sent assassins to eliminate the Wei family during their exile, aiming to eradicate any future threats. Wei Yun was fortunately saved by Xiao Zun, but she remained under constant surveillance by Xiao's father, who was merely biding his time to have her killed. She deliberately acted close to Xiao Zun and repeatedly defied me on purpose, just to present her case to me. The reason she didn't tell Xiao Zun the truth is that, to her, Xiao Zun is merely a cousin she has only met a few times, not to mention that he has an extremely good relationship with second uncle Xiao, and Wei Yun also feared that Xiao Zun might be involved in this matter. Wei Yun cried until she nearly fainted. I helped her up, wiped the tears from her face, and made a promise. You risk telling me this, and I will protect you and do my best to save Xiao Feng. The matter of the ironware is of great importance. You and I must enter the palace immediately to report it to His Majesty. Rest assured, His Majesty will see justice done for you," taking advantage of the fact that Princess Yongyang's banquet had not yet ended. I discreetly brought Wei Yun into the palace. 2 hours later, the Empress Mother dispatched the Imperial Shadow Guards to surround Xiao Zhuo's residence. At midnight, the batch of ironware was found again at the northern city's armory. The barely alive Xiao Feng was also found in the death row prison. The Xiao family's property was dug 3 feet deep, uncovering 800 horizontal swords and 1,000 powerful bows, even in the secret chamber of Elder Xiao's study. Handwritten letters from the deposed crown prince were discovered, containing mostly malicious remarks aimed at overthrowing the Liang dynasty. The empress was enraged and immediately issued an edict to have Xiao Zhuo and his family imprisoned in the imperial dungeon under strict surveillance. Then summoned General Xiao. Because of Xiao Zhuo's case, the imperial court was thrown into a storm of bloodshed. Only my Prince Ying's residence remained peaceful and undisturbed. The case of second uncle Xiao exposed the conspiracy of high-ranking court officials colluding with the deposed crown prince in an attempt to overthrow the empress. Those high-ranking officials who had kept aloof and remained indifferent began to panic. This year was destined to be spent in turmoil. Old General Xiao and Xiao Zhuo were brothers, but only because they shared the surname Xiao. They had claimed kinship early on when accompanying the founding emperor in conquering the realm. Now that Xiao Zhuo was in trouble, Old General Xiao remained unscathed and was even granted the title of Marquis of the State. The people of the capital grew even more certain that the emperor valued the Xiao family, and that the royal family would soon form a marriage alliance with them. When the rumors reached the prince's mansion, Mingxi was peeling grapes. The grapes were peeled so messily that not a single one retained its original shape. I took Mingxi's hand to stop him. She picked a grape herself, carefully peeled it, and fed it to Mingxi. "Mingxi, the Empress Mother does intend to bestow a marriage between me and Xiao Zun. However, I refused." Mingxi paused mid-bite on the grape, her fox-like eyes beneath the mask widening slightly. "Your Highness, why refuse? General Xiao commands 200,000 Northern Shore cavalry. If you marry the young General Xiao, the Xiao family will become your support." I stared at him and said with a smile, "I made a bet with the Empress. If I can recapture the cities of Gua and Guan by next year, she will revoke the marriage decree and grant me an imperial edict." I leaned close to Mingxi's ear and whispered with a light laugh, "You say, how about I ask the Empress to grant our marriage and make you my official consort?" Mingxi stiffened, speaking with difficulty. "This servant is physically flawed and unworthy of your Highness." I lifted Mingxi's mask, kissed his scar, and declared solemnly, "Mingxi, I just want you by my side. You are wonderful, better than anyone else in the world. Tell me, are you willing?" Mingxi never gave me an answer in the end. I didn't want to pressure him too much, so I didn't bring it up again. After all, in the end, he can still become my rightful husband. The year-end palace banquet began. I brought Mingxi into the palace with me. During the banquet, I saw Xiao Zun, dressed in a crimson robe with shimmering golden patterns. He first cast a disdainful glance at Mingxi, then turned his head away, his high ponytail swinging over his shoulder. Wei Yun, who had been accompanying him, had already taken Xiao Feng back to his maternal home under my arrangement, leaving him to sit alone across from me. In my previous life, during this palace banquet, the Empress Mother issued an edict betrothing me to Xiao Zun, but in this life, that imperial decree will likely never appear. Halfway through the banquet, Xiao Zun grew uncharacteristically anxious, drinking frequently, his face flushed bright red. Until the palace feast ended, the imperial decree of the marriage arrangement still did not appear. Instead, the Empress Mother reinstated Xiao Zun's status as a young general. Xiao Zun, receiving the decree, forced a smile, and as he passed by me, a trace of sorrow flickered in his eyes. I averted my gaze. I thought I had severed all ties with Xiao Zun, but as the lantern festival approached, I was making lanterns in the courtyard with Mingxi. Suddenly, Xiao Zun burst in, dressed in red. His hair was slightly disheveled, and his eyes were bloodshot. His eyes reddened the moment he saw me. "Why, Your Highness, how could you refuse the Emperor's marriage proposal for the sake of a lowly eunuch? What then is the betrothal gift I prepared for the marriage? What am I to you? You would rather have him than me. 30 years, a full 30 years. I have stood by you from princess to the throne. I broke my hand that once held a spear for you. I took the open and hidden arrows for you. You no longer want Qianna, and you no longer want me either. In the end, you actually intend to marry a eunuch as your principal consort. If I hadn't asked His Majesty, how much longer did you plan to keep this from me? Your Highness, you are truly heartless." Scalding tears fell from Xiaozun's eyes as he gazed at me with resentment. Xiaozun, shut up. His status is not for you to comment on. I interrupted Xiaozun's words. It seems that the words from that night still haven't made Xiaozun give up. I looked at him calmly and said, Xiaozun, I told you that Mingxi is the only one I love, and I am determined to marry him. Our fate ended that very night. Xiaozun took a few steps back in disbelief, unable to look at me, and growled at Mingxi. I don't believe it. I am a great general of Liang. How could I possibly be inferior to a eunuch? Do you know that in my past life, His Highness and I were a blessed union arranged by the Emperor himself, the imperial couple who had our marriage sanctified by heaven, earth, and the ancestral temple? You, a eunuch, with your incomplete body, don't even have the right to continue His Highness's bloodline. In my past life, I had a royal child with His Highness, and on the day she was born, His Highness named her the Crown Princess. Do you think you are the only one for His Majesty? Let me tell you. In the past life, His Highness took in Minglang, took in Xuani, took in the Prince of the Southern Barbarians, and took in one man after another, in the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. Not a single one of them was you. I was about to speak, but Mingxi held my trembling hand, her voice calm and resolute. General Xiao, what happened in the past life is His Highness's history. Though I was not part of it, I know His Highness became the Emperor, and naturally, he could take consorts to continue the royal lineage. I do not care, from beginning to end. The only one I care about is His Highness. I know my physical imperfections make me unworthy of your Highness, but if you want me, I will stay by your side forever, General Xiao. As for the 30 years of companionship you mentioned from your past life, it seems your Highness did not live a happy life. If that's the case, why do you insist on holding on to him so tightly? Xiaozun was stunned by Mingxi's words. He turned to look at me and asked in a low voice, in your past life, did you ever have a shred of sincerity for me? I avoided Xiaozun's gaze, took Mingxi's hand, and said, Xiaozun, 30 years of torment are enough to wear away any sincerity. I, too, once shared a brief, beautiful time with Xiaozun. I reviewed memorials late into the night, and he would stay with me until late, sitting on the small couch, quietly reading military texts. During the autumn hunt, even when his hands lacked strength, he still tried his hardest to hunt a red fox to make a scarf for me. He would sing the folk songs of the northern desert, and whenever he got drunk, he would pull me up to the palace roof, pointing toward the northern desert and telling me stories of his time there. Those warm moments soothed my cold heart. I began to try to accept Xiaozun, to accept this imperial consort, bestowing upon him and the Xiao family endless honor and favor. When our first child, Qianna, was born, I immediately named her the Crown Princess. Xiaozun personally carved a piece of peace jade and gifted it to me. Later, I was poisoned and fell into a coma, requiring the blood vine flower from the southern barbarians for medicine. He traveled thousands of miles with his men, deep into the miasmic lands, to gather flowers for my medicine. He also climbed the mountain himself, kowtowing with every step, praying for me for 3 days and 3 nights. Exhausted and disheveled, his robes stained with snow, he held my hand and shed tears. But when I found an ancient military text to give him as a gift, I overheard him complaining to a friend, Imperial consort, I am but a bird kept by Her Majesty. If it weren't for saving Her Majesty, my tendons wouldn't have been severed. And I wouldn't have lost my position as a general. How I regret it. I should have been an eagle soaring over the northern deserts. But now I am nothing but a useless wreck. It was on that day that I realized Xiaozun had always held a grudge against me in his heart. Later, I searched the world for renowned physicians to heal his hand, yet he thought I was looking down on him as a useless cripple who could no longer go to battle, and began to repeatedly bring up the debt of saving my life. He resented me for taking in the old retainers of the prince's mansion and for accepting the southern barbarian prince. I also resent, I also hate. I began to ignore him, staying overnight in the chambers of other noble consorts. The more I acted this way, the more he argued with me. Colorful clouds are easily scattered, and glass is easily shattered. Those warm moments and heart-fluttering feelings had long been worn away by day after day of arguments. Xiaozun and I were meant to lead 2 different lives. Xiaozun left, utterly dejected. Soon after, rumors spread in the capital that His Majesty intended to select a consort for me. Ministers with sons of marriageable age in the court began arranging for painters to create portraits of their sons. Upon learning of this, Xiaozun stole the brushes of the capital's painters. He then went door to door to meet the sons of these ministers, chatting heart to heart and practicing martial arts with them. The poor, dashing young men of the capital were thoroughly subdued by Xiao Zun's unreasonable methods, not daring to entertain any thoughts of rebellion. Apart from causing trouble for the young masters in the capital, Xiao Zun tirelessly sent cartloads of precious goods from Beishiro to the prince's mansion every day. He would climb over the wall to find me without fail each day, even when he saw Mingxi by my side. He pretended not to notice and still gave me mandarin duck jade pendants and wooden carvings that he had made himself. After a whole month of this, I was almost driven to irritation by his antics. He received the imperial decree to go south and suppress the pirates. Upon learning that he was heading south, I recalled the pirate massacre in Jiangcheng that occurred this same year in my previous life. I had mentioned this matter to the Empress Mother before, and she was well aware of the rampant pirate activity, but deciding whom to send to suppress them became a difficult problem. In my previous life, it was only after I ascended the throne that the pirates were completely eradicated, thanks to a solution devised by Xiao Zun. But never did I expect that in this lifetime, it would be Xiao Zun who was ordered to go to war. Because of the case involving Xiao Juo, the Xiao Zun lineage also suffered some impact. His reputation in Daliang was also damaged. The Empress Mother infected him as the Marquis of Zhonghua, allowing him to rest and recuperate in the capital. After this incident, the determination of the Northern Shore army to follow the Xiao family gradually wavered. The Empress took the opportunity to send trusted generals with cannons to Northern Shore, intending to reclaim the cities of Jidai Pass and Guara, which would be the moment to win over the Northern Shore army, unable to go to the Xiao family for the time being. Xiao Zun had no choice but to seek another way and accepted the imperial decree to go south to suppress the sea bandits. I entrusted Qi Xiaoming to produce the compass and telescope from my previous life. Qi Xiaoming immediately took out the items upon hearing this, and also brought along a firelock. That day, the conversation between Xiao Zun and me in the courtyard was overheard by Qi Xiaoming, who had come to deliver something. She always used the excuse of delivering items to come see me. When she saw me, she didn't say anything, just grinned foolishly. She was also scribbling and drawing something in a notebook with a charcoal pencil. Later, I discovered that she was actually writing in my sketchbook. I immediately sent her back to her own residence. On the day Xiao Zun left the city, I, as the Prince of Ying, saw him off. He rode on horseback, his cheeks gaunt and his gaze like fire, almost scorching through me. "Your Highness, wait for me." I watched his receding figure. A pang of bitterness rising in my heart. 3 months later, the Xiongnu invaded from the south, but they were blasted into pieces by the cannons of the generals. The thunderous roar of the cannons threw the Xiongnu into panic. They leaped off their horses, dropped their swords, pushed aside their comrades, and fled toward the grasslands. The power of the cannons terrified the fierce Xiongnu, who cried out, "Heaven's punishment!" They beheaded their leader, kneeling on the ground to beg for heaven's forgiveness. On the city wall, through the telescope, I saw the fear of the Huns, their cowardice, their despair. I saw the joyful souls of countless soldiers and civilians who died for their country. This battle, the Liang dynasty drove the Xiongnu back to the cold mountains, nearly annihilating the royal tribe. The deposed crown prince, who had been hiding in the Xiongnu royal court, was also crushed to pieces. The cities of Guan and Gua were recaptured, and even the westernmost city of Yu was garrisoned by Liang troops. By the bonfire at night, the people of Beishiro sang and danced, their melodious songs echoing through the air. I couldn't help but hum along, and after finishing, a young woman asked curiously, "Miss, this is a song sung by men from Beishiro when proposing to their beloved. I never expected a Central Plains person like you to know it too. Is the man you love also from Beishiro?" I froze in place. Suddenly, I remembered that on the night of my wedding to Xiao Zun in my past life, after lifting the red veil, he sang this very song with a flushed face. He said it was a blessing song sung at weddings in Beishiro, and once sung, the young couple would receive the protection of the Beishiro god, staying together for generations to come. Later, Xiao Zun taught me to sing Beishiro folk songs and passed this blessing song on to me. When I hummed it, he smiled brightly. Only now do I understand the reason behind his smile. After returning to the capital, I received a chest of treasures from Xiao Zun, sent from the southern lands, along with a letter written in blood. My heart sank as I opened it. Every word on it was written with blood, pouring out all the regrets from his past life. He does not seek forgiveness, only hoping that if he returns, he can be given a place by my side. "Your Highness, I was gravely mistaken in my past life. Your Highness, my heart is not a stone, it cannot be turned." I carefully placed the blood-written letter back into the box, gazing at the sky beyond the eaves. I thought my heart had long turned cold, yet it still cracked open a sliver at the sight of this blood-stained letter. The hollow heart felt stiflingly heavy. It turns out that after 30 years of companionship, I had long grown accustomed to Xiao Zun's presence. That unwavering affection moved me deeply. Your Highness, all the past events are behind us now. He has repented and suffered enough. Haven't you been moved as well? If the young general does not return this time, Your Highness must not live with regret, I asked. Mingxi, do you not resent it? Mingxi shook her head. As long as Your Highness is well, nothing else matters. I brought up the matter of making Mingxi my principal consort to the Empress. The Empress sighed and said, Phoenix child, Mingxi is a good boy, but he is physically incomplete and unworthy of being the principal consort. If it were for a secondary consort, I would issue an edict to bestow the marriage. I said slowly, Mother, I am deeply in love with Mingxi and wish to marry him. The Empress shook her head, helping me up from the ground, and said, If you insist on taking Mingxi as your official consort, the people of this realm will never accept an imperial husband with physical imperfections. Huanga, the path to ruling the world is not an easy one. Are you truly prepared? Yes, Mother. Soon after, the Empress issued a decree, naming me the crown princess and granting Mingxi to me as my principal consort. Yet, unexpectedly, along with it came another decree appointing Xiao Zun as a secondary consort. The Empress said. Xiao Zun nearly eradicated the pirates at sea, almost losing his life in the process. He protected the people along the southern coast, yet he seeks no official title, no reward, only a place by your side. Even old man Xiao came to plead with me, presenting a decree he had earned through military merit. Fenga, do not disappoint those who truly care for you. I had no choice but to accept the imperial decree. I finally married the one I had longed for over 2 lifetimes. The two of us lived in separate courtyards, east and west, and unless by intention, we would hardly ever cross paths. After Xiao Zun entered the palace, he quietly restrained his formerly arrogant temperament. On the first night I stepped into his courtyard, he wore red robes as in my past life and sang that northern folk song. 5 years later, the Empress Mother abdicated, and I became the Emperor of Great Liang. Mingxi and Xiao Zun stood beside me to receive the homage of the 100 officials.